poor girl saw the same birthmark she has on a rich footballer's child wrist. It wasn't just the same birthmark, it was the exact same spot. The only difference was that the mark was sitting prettier on her. Hello friends, before we start this story we would love to know where you're watching from. Tell us so we can give you a special hug in our next video. Like, comment and subscribe. The stadium was full, every seat taken, every aisle crowded. People were shouting team names, vendors were yelling prices, kids were running ahead of parents who kept calling them back. It was the biggest game of the season, the kind everyone talked about for weeks. Tickets were expensive. Security was tight. Nothing about that place was meant for someone like her. Yet she was there. She stood near the stadium reception, half hidden behind a pillar, trying not to draw attention. Her clothes were worn thin, the color faded so badly it was hard to tell what they used to be. She hadn't planned to come inside. She had been wandering outside earlier, watching crowds pour in. People were happy. Excited. Kids her age wore jerseys with player names printed neatly across the back. Some carried snacks bigger than their hands. They laughed without checking who was watching. That was what pulled her closer. Not the game. Not the building. The kids. She followed them without thinking, slipping through doors when they opened, walking confidently enough that no one questioned her. Adults assumed she belonged to someone else. Security looked past her. It happened more often than people realized. Inside, the air smelled like food and cleaning spray. Screens flashed highlights from past games. Everything felt too bright. She slowed near the reception desk, unsure where to go next. Her stomach hurt, the dull ache she'd learned to ignore. She leaned against the pillar, watching. That was when she saw the other girl. The girl stood just a few steps away, talking to a woman and a man who looked important without trying. The girl was her age, maybe 8 or 9. Her dress was white, clean, pressed. Her blonde hair was styled neatly, pulled back with care. Not stiff. Not forced. Just normal for a child who had someone doing those things every morning. The poor girl stared longer than she should have. At first, she didn't know why. It wasn't jealousy. She'd seen rich kids before. It was something else. Something familiar that didn't make sense. The rich girl laughed at something the woman said. Her laugh was easy. No hesitation. No checking surroundings first. The poor girl shifted her weight, adjusting her sleeve again. Her arm moved without thought. The rich girl noticed her then. Kids notice things adults don't. She stopped talking and looked directly at the poor girl. No fear. No judgment. Just curiosity. For a second, they simply looked at each other. Two girls. Same height. Same pale skin. Same light hair, though one was messy and dull from neglect, the other clean and shining. The poor girl felt exposed. She dropped her gaze, but not fast enough. The rich girl smiled. Not the kind of smile adults give out of politeness. A real one. The kind that asks a silent question. The poor girl didn't smile back. She wasn't rude. She just didn't know how. She shifted again, tugging her sleeve. That movement revealed her wrist. A small birthmark sat there, just below the joint. It wasn't dark. It wasn't raised. Just a shape, slightly curved, like a small leaf or a teardrop with an uneven edge. At the same moment, the rich girl lifted her own arm to tuck hair behind her ear. Same wrist. Same place. Same shape. Neither girl said anything. The adults hadn't noticed yet. A man approached them then, stepping in from the side. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a jacket that probably cost more than everything the poor girl owned combined. His face was familiar in a way that made people nearby straighten up. He was one of the most well-known football players in the country. He wasn't supposed to be there. Not in the open. Not without a crowd forming. But he was there, smiling at his daughter, bending slightly to hear her over the noise. He followed her gaze. He saw the other girl. At first, he assumed what everyone else would have. A lost child. A fan's kid who wandered off. It happened all the time. Then his eyes dropped. To the wrist. He didn't react the way people expected when they recognized something impossible. There was no sudden movement. No sharp intake of breath. Just a pause that lasted half a second longer than normal. His expression changed, but only slightly. Enough that his wife noticed. She followed his gaze. She saw it too. The woman's hand moved automatically to her daughter's arm, gently pulling her closer. Not protective. Instinctive. The poor girl felt that movement like a door closing. She stepped back without thinking. The man straightened. He looked at the poor girl's face now. Really looked. Her eyes were light, the same shade as his daughter's. Her nose. The way her eyebrows sat. Coincidences existed. He knew that. People told him all the time how much someone else looked like him. Still, something felt wrong. "Where are your parents?" the woman asked, keeping her voice calm. The poor girl shrugged. Not dramatically. Just a small lift of the shoulders. "I don't know," she said. Her voice wasn't shaky. It was flat. Used. That answer landed heavier than any dramatic response would have. The man glanced around. Staff members hovered nearby, pretending not to stare. Cameras weren't pointed yet. No one had connected dots. He made a decision without announcing it. He asked one of the stadium employees to bring the girl water. Then food. Simple things. The employee hesitated, then complied. No one argued with him. The poor girl sat on the edge of a chair near the desk, gripping the water bottle like it might disappear. She drank fast. Too fast. The man noticed. He noticed everything now. The way she avoided eye contact. The way she kept her body turned slightly toward the exit. The way she flinched when someone walked too close behind her. His wife watched too, her expression unreadable. People around them whispered. Phones lifted. Someone recognized him fully now. He ignored them. "Do you know your name?" he asked gently. She told him. Just a first name. No last name. No paperwork. No story rehearsed to make adults comfortable. He asked where she lived. She shrugged again. "Wherever," she said. The woman's lips pressed together. Not in anger. In restraint. They could have handed her over to security. To social services. To someone else. That would have been the sensible thing. The man looked at his daughter, who was now studying the poor girl openly. The two girls shared a look again. This time longer. Something passed between them that adults didn't understand. The man straightened. "Come with us," he said. The poor girl hesitated. Her eyes flicked to the exits. To the people. To the food still in her hand. "Just for a bit," he added as if explaining to himself. She nodded. She didn't smile. She didn't thank him. She followed. They left through a private exit. The noise faded behind them. The poor girl walked slightly behind, ready to stop if told. The car ride was quiet. The rich girl talked about the game, about school, about nothing important. The poor girl listened without commenting. The man watched them through the mirror. When they reached the house, the poor girl stopped at the door. It was big. Quiet. She waited for permission to enter. That alone told them more than anything she'd said. Inside, the poor girl moved carefully, touching nothing unless invited. She accepted a shower with suspicion. Clean clothes with hesitation. She stared at herself in the mirror afterward like she didn't recognize the person looking back. Dinner was simple. No speeches. No questions that felt like traps. Later, when the girls were in separate rooms, the man and his wife sat together in silence. Neither said the word that was forming in both their minds. Twin. Their daughter had been born with a twin. They had been told the other baby didn't make it. They had been given papers. Explanations. Sympathy. They had grieved. Now there was a child sleeping under their roof with the same birthmark. The same age. The same face. The man finally spoke. "We need answers." That night, no one slept well. The poor girl lay awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the moment someone would tell her to leave. Down the hall, the man stared at his daughter's wrist, then his own empty hand. Morning came earlier than anyone wanted. The house was awake before the sun fully rose. Not because alarms went off, but because no one slept deeply enough to rest. The kind of night where thoughts repeat themselves until they lose meaning. The poor girl woke first. She sat up in the unfamiliar bed, stiff, already dressed in the clothes they had given her the night before. She hadn't slept much. She never did in new places. Her eyes moved around the room, taking inventory. Window. Door. Closet. Downstairs, the man stood at the kitchen counter staring into a mug of coffee he hadn't touched. His wife moved around the kitchen slowly, doing things out of habit. Neither of them spoke for a while. Their daughter came in last, hair messy, dragging her blanket behind her. She climbed onto a chair and started talking immediately, asking where the other girl was, whether she could eat breakfast with them, whether they could show her the backyard later. The man nodded without really hearing. When the poor girl finally came downstairs, she stopped at the bottom step. She waited to be noticed. The wife saw her first. "Good morning," she said, keeping her voice even. The girl nodded. "Morning." No small talk followed. She sat when invited. She ate slowly this time, watching the others copying their pace. The two girls kept glancing at each other. Not smiling. Just observing. After breakfast, the man suggested the girls watch TV together. He didn't frame it as an order. He framed it as something normal. As soon as they were out of earshot, the wife spoke. "You're thinking the same thing I am," she said. He nodded. "I don't want to jump to conclusions," she added quickly, as if trying to stop herself. "But the timing. It's too much." They had avoided saying it out loud for years. The hospital had told them one baby survived. One didn't. There had been complications during delivery. They were exhausted, emotional, overwhelmed. They trusted the doctors. Now trust felt thin. The man spent the rest of the morning on the phone. Quiet calls. Careful questions. He didn't mention names. He didn't accuse. He asked for records. Dates. Transfers. Hospitals didn't like reopening old files. Especially not ones involving births that happened almost a decade earlier. Most staff said the same thing. Records archived. Staff moved on. Nothing unusual reported. That answer would have satisfied him once. Not now. He contacted a private investigator he'd worked with years earlier for a completely different reason. He didn't explain everything at first. He just asked for help finding information connected to a specific hospital and a closed adoption agency. Meanwhile, the wife spent time with the poor girl. She didn't interrogate her. She asked normal questions. What food she liked. Whether she preferred quiet or noise. If she liked school. The girl answered honestly. She hadn't been in school for a while. She liked toast because it was filling. She didn't mind quiet. The wife watched her hands as she spoke. The way she held herself. The way she stayed alert even while sitting still. Eventually, the wife asked about her past. Not all at once. In pieces. The girl talked about a small house she lived in once. A couple who weren't her parents but took care of her. They weren't rich. They worked long hours. They were kind enough. She remembered a woman who smelled like laundry soap and a man who liked to watch TV late at night. They died in a car accident when she was 6. After that, things blurred together. Shelters. Short stays. Adults who said they were helping. Paperwork she didn't understand. Then nothing. She slipped through gaps no one noticed until she was already gone. The wife listened without interrupting. "Do you remember a hospital?" she asked gently. The girl thought for a moment. "Yeah. When I was really little." "What do you remember about it?" "White walls. A woman crying. Not loud. Just a lot." The wife's chest tightened. That afternoon, the investigator called back. He had found something. Not proof. Not yet. But inconsistencies. The hospital had logged twins. Both alive at birth. One transferred to neonatal care. The other recorded as deceased several hours later. There was no clear documentation of a body. No death certificate signed by a physician present at the time. Only a note entered later. The adoption agency had received a newborn around the same time. The paperwork listed the baby as abandoned, no identifying family. The man sat down heavily when he heard that. Abandoned. The wife closed her eyes. They didn't tell the poor girl anything yet. Not because they wanted to hide the truth, but because they didn't have it fully. The days that followed were tense. Lawyers became involved. Quietly. Carefully. The investigator dug deeper. He found a retired nurse who had worked at the hospital during that period. She was reluctant to talk at first. Then nervous. Then angry. She said there had been pressure. Too many babies. Not enough space. an agency that offered solutions. She said some staff believed they were helping families who couldn't handle 2 children. She said mistakes were made. She said lies were told. DNA testing was the final step. They explained it to the poor girl without promises. It's just to understand, the man said. No matter what it says, you're safe here. She nodded. She didn't fully believe him, but she wanted to. The sample was taken. Sent away. Waiting became unbearable. The poor girl stayed quiet during that time. Too quiet. She cleaned without being asked. She folded blankets that didn't need folding. She apologized for things that weren't her fault. The rich girl didn't understand the tension. She just knew something important was happening. She stuck closer to her parents than usual. One evening, she asked why her friend looked like her. No one answered directly. The results arrived on a Thursday morning. The man opened the email alone in his office. He read it twice before standing up. Then he sat back down. The match was clear. The poor girl wasn't a coincidence. She was their daughter. The second twin. The child they had been told was gone. He didn't rush downstairs. He didn't shout. He sat there for a long time, staring at the screen, thinking about years he couldn't get back. The wife joined him later. She read the report. Her face changed in a way he had never seen before. Not dramatic. Just broken open. They cried quietly. Together. No words. Then reality returned. What would they tell the girl? What would they tell their daughter? What would the world do once it found out? They found the poor girl in the living room that afternoon, drawing on scrap paper. She looked up when they entered. They sat across from her. Not towering. Not looming. The man spoke slowly. We found out something important, he said. She waited. We think you're our child. She asked one question. So, I don't have to leave? That was when the wife broke down completely. The girl moved closer without thinking. She reached out awkwardly, unsure what to do. No one rushed the rest of the conversation. They told her about the twins, the hospital, the adoption. She listened carefully. When they finished, she leaned back and took a breath. That explains a lot, she said quietly. That night, the house felt different. The first thing that changed was the silence. Not the comfortable kind. The kind that settles in a house when people are thinking too much and saying too little. The kind where every sound feels louder than it should. The poor girl stayed close to the edges of rooms, like she was still unsure how much space she was allowed to take. She had been told she was their child, but her body hadn't caught up to the idea yet. Years of being temporary didn't disappear overnight. The rich girl sensed it before anyone explained it fully. She noticed how adults spoke more carefully. How her parents watched the other girl when they thought no one was looking. How their faces softened in a way she hadn't seen before. One afternoon, while the adults were in another room, the rich girl asked the question everyone else was avoiding. Are we sisters? The poor girl didn't answer right away. She didn't want to say the wrong thing. I think so, she said finally. The rich girl nodded, like that was enough for now. She didn't ask what that meant or how it worked. She just scooted closer on the couch and turned the TV back on. That small moment mattered more than any speech could have. The legal side of things moved faster once the truth was confirmed. The hospital was contacted again, this time with evidence they couldn't dismiss. Lawyers sent letters. Records that had been lost suddenly reappeared. The adoption agency stopped returning calls altogether. When the story leaked, it didn't happen dramatically. A staff member talked. A document surfaced. A reporter connected dots. By the time the man realized it was public, the headline was already everywhere. People reacted the way people always do. Some were shocked. Some were angry. Some treated it like entertainment. The footballer was praised and criticized in the same breath. The hospital released a carefully worded statement. The agency went silent. The man stepped back from the season. Not officially at first. Then completely. He stood in front of cameras once. Just once. He didn't smile. He didn't defend himself. He said the truth mattered more than his career. Then he went home. Inside the house, life continued in smaller ways. The poor girl got enrolled in school. She struggled at first. Not academically. Socially. She didn't know how to trust kindness that wasn't temporary. Teachers were patient. Some classmates weren't. She came home frustrated more than once. Not angry. Just tired. Her mother sat with her at the kitchen table those evenings. No lectures. No advice unless asked. Just presence. The man learned things too. How to pack lunches. How to listen without fixing. How to sit through quiet moments without trying to fill them. Their daughter adjusted in her own way. Sometimes she asked questions. Sometimes she didn't. Sometimes she got jealous, then felt bad about it. All of it was normal. All of it was allowed. They went to family therapy. Not because they were broken, but because they wanted to stay honest. The poor girl slowly stopped asking for permission to exist. She laughed more. Not loudly. Naturally. One evening, months later, they sat in the backyard watching the girls play. The twins had grown into each other's space in ways no one could have planned. They argued like siblings. They teamed up like siblings. The man watched their wrists as they ran past. Same mark. Same story. Different paths that somehow crossed again. The hospital eventually settled quietly. The adoption agency was shut down after further investigation. No press conference. No public apology that felt adequate. Some things never get fixed properly. What mattered was what happened next. Years later, when people talked about the story, they focused on the coincidence. The stadium. The footballer. The birthmark. The family remembered something else. A girl who wandered into a place she wasn't meant to be. A truth that refused to stay buried. And a home that finally stopped being temporary. Not because of fame. Not because of money. But because someone looked closely enough to see what had been missed. Subscribe for more stories like this.